Good morning and welcome to Sold Out Saturday Stories. I'm your host, Rosalind Malone. I believe everyone has a story, and everyone's story deserves to be heard. So if you or someone you know need to borrow a little faith, hope, or encouragement, come close and lean in as my guests share their story on why they know that they know that they know that old news is still good news. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, pastors, I should say.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My dad told me, well, you have to give people their respect because I grew up with this guy that I know. He wasn't a pastor then, going to school, and he's like now Pastor so-and-so, and I'm like, but Dad, he's just Tyrone to me, so good afternoon, pastors.
I mean, you can call me anything, just
Where
don't call me late for dinner.
Right, exactly. So I, first of all, want to say thank you to both of you guys for saying yes to sharing your stories with me. It's really huge. I think that a lot of times we don't share our stories with other people often enough.
Yeah.
And so in 2018, when I believe God impressed it upon my heart to take people to his word, just to point back to him, he didn't say how, he didn't say what. And I thought, after living my life, always being a believer, but listening to other people's stories and their testimonies, I just really didn't think that I had one. Like didn't have a big enough, grand enough story. So who would listen to me? Even though, I'm a worshiper and I love God and I think anybody would know. But what would I tell someone in their everyday, ordinary life that sees me outside of the church? So yeah. I was sharing with Bernard that, Pastor Kyle, I was sharing with Bernard that I don't really, I know you guys don't know me. I know his wife, Kim. We've become good friends over the years. And I learned about Tapestry Ministry when Kim came to share her story with me on Sold Out Saturday Stories. So she was telling me about your church, and I thought it was just so amazing and so unique and so different. And so I guess this was maybe a year ago. I said, I need to hear about this. I need to hear about your church. And I believe this is a wonderful time to introduce Tapestry to the world. So before we get started, would you please each introduce yourselves to me, to my community, so that we'll know a little bit more about you before we dive in. And we can start with Pastor Bernard.
Yes, I'm Pastor Bernard Emerson. I'm the lead pastor at Tapestry Church, a ministry that we started in Oakland about 2 years ago. I'm also, I work as a ministry developer for a ministry called World Impact, and I'm the urban church specialist for Converge Pac West.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And Pastor Kyle?
Well, I'm simple. I just have one job.
One hat.
But yeah, my name is Kyle Brooks. I'm one of the pastors at Tapestry. Bernard and I started in June 2018, and we've been rocking together for a few years before that, and plan to for a very, 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 very long time. So
that's amazing. So how did you guys meet? Did you guys?
We met. We met at through the Bay Area Clergy Cohort, which was a cohort of pastors of different denominations, different faith traditions. And we met there. It was centered around social justice and community organizing. So that's where me and Kyle met. It's strange how we met. Kyle, you want to tell the story of how we met?
Yeah, sure. So there was one day during our year in this cohort together, where when we came into the room, we were told not to sit down. The chairs were all set up as a pyramid instead of in rows or in a circle or whatever. and the chairs in the front had a lot of leg room. They were nicely spaced out and everything. The chairs in the back were all smushed together, no leg room, no arm, shoulder room. There was trash on the ground. And the facilitator, once all of us got in the room, said, all right, now I want you to pick the seat that society tells you that you belong in.
Oh, wow.
And so we, people started filtering to their seats, and Bernard picked a seat in the back on the corner, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you could get away, and I was chatting with somebody during the instructions, and so basically all the other white men had picked rows 2 and 3, and then it had filled up behind them. So I had the seat right in the front.
Wow.
So I'm sitting in the front, Bernard's sitting in the back. We have this long conversation as a group, like 3 hours of conversation about why did you sit where you sat, and what is it like to be where you are.
That is so huge.
Yeah.
It was deep. I mean, it was painful. People were angry. People were feeling ashamed.
People were sad.
People were sad, confused. It was a brutal few hours. And at the end of it, the facilitator said, okay, well, none of us seem to enjoy this system that we're in. So why don't you go ahead and reimagine the system? And that's when everybody got up and started, without talking to each other, started moving their chairs out, out to the corner. And the facilitator goes, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you all doing? And we all stopped and looked at him, and he said, we just got done talking about how deeply entrenched this system is, how much it has impacted our history and our daily lives, and you think that you can reimagine it without even talking to each other about how to do that.
Whoa.
Right.
Wow.
And it was at that point that Kyle came to the back, because I didn't move. And Kyle came to the back to me. No work goes on in the back. So I didn't move. I had held my place. And Kyle walked back there to me and he says, what do you want me to do? And he says, as a result, I've been telling him what to do ever since.
That's funny, but it's also serious. But so why did you not move?
Because I felt like I took a seat in the back in the corner. So I felt like I had an out just in case that I needed to get away. But when he said reimagine the system and change the system, I was under the impression that this system is so entrenched in our society, there's nothing I can do to change it, so I didn't move.
That's heavy. And I completely understand that. Completely. And this is like getting deep really, really fast. And it's necessary because I want people to hear it. I've heard of these social systems for years now, but I didn't know that we were literally doing those type of things right now. I didn't know that there was such a place. So was this a room of clergy? Was it all men?
Yes.
And all men?
It was male and female.
Wow.
Of all different nationalities, all different ethnic backgrounds, all different socioeconomical backgrounds, everything.
Right.
This was about the most diverse group you can find anywhere.
Wow. So is that something, it's clergy, but is that something that communities can participate in? Like groups of people? And how do you get invited to something like this? Because that's huge.
Yeah. Well, there was a congregational cohort that followed up to that. This was back in 2015, 2016. And in the following year, so 2016, 2017, there was a congregational cohort that the members of the clergy cohort invited their congregations to participate in. So we had a few people go from our community to participate in that. I don't know that it's progressed since then, but it was a powerful experience. And I mean, it was really the foundation of why we did what we did.
Right.
With Tapestry, because, we figured, the church is supposed to be God's place for quote unquote reimagining the system. In other words, living like the kingdom of God is already present.
Okay.
And we figured, wow, there's some deep truth here that we cannot do that unless we talk to each other. We cannot do that unless we know each other.
Right.
It's like brothers.
That's huge. That's huge. Okay, so were you both pastors of different churches at that time?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I pastored a church called The Way, and Kyle pastored Oakland Communion. And we were about 3 years into a church plant, and Kyle was about 2 years into his.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So 2 church buildings,
Yep.
both located in Oakland?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So who came up with the idea? Who said it first? Who said, hey, let's tear down the walls of our individual churches and come together as one church? Whose idea was it?
I think it was the way I remember it, it was kind of a mutual idea, because Kyle and I had been talking church planning, and we had been talking church, and then we were and just that reimagining the system, and then we both came up with like, hey, the best way we can make this happen is if we were to come together as one church.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's huge. So, Carl,
Yeah, I mean, that's how I remember it too. It was a mutual thing, and we had been participating in each other's churches actually. By the time that any of it that we had that conversation, we had been participating in each other's things for months.
Right.
So our communities knew each of us.
That's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know. Like, how did you break it to your churches? Guess what?
So we would make excuses for our 2 communities to be together.
The 2 of you would make excuses.
Yep.
For the church.
So,
yeah.
And when we came up with the idea, we didn't expect our communities to be friends just because of our friendship.
And that's
So
what I want to know.
Yep. We used to make excuses let's have a marble shoot and you guys come, or let's play jacks and you guys come. We would just make excuses for our 2 communities to be together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good way of doing it, and it makes sense. So Pastor Kyle, when you stood in your pulpit and told your church, okay, we're thinking about shutting the doors to our church and combining with another church, how did that go over with your congregation? First of all, how large is your community? How large is your church? And then how did you break the news, and how did they take it?
Well, both of our churches were pretty intimate at that time. Like, we're pretty small. So I think we had about 20 people meeting with us at that time. And Bernard, what you had probably like 25, 30?
25, 30.
So we had, so it was a pretty small and tight-knit group. And the night that we talked about it as a community at Oakland Communion, it was in my living room, actually. It was like we had like a community meeting in my living room. Mm-hmm. And we had 3 things to discuss that night. And I thought, okay, items 1 and items 2 are going to be like item 1 is going to go over really well. Like, everybody's going to be down. Mm-hmm. Item 2, we're talking about a new name, actually, because we hadn't even had a name yet. Like, we waited for a long time for that. And I thought, that's going to be like, I'm going to have some convincing to do, but I think it's going to go okay, pretty well. Mm-hmm. Item number 3, which was, hey, I really believe God is calling us to merge with the Way. I thought, this is going to be challenging. Well, the truth is that the new name was like everybody was into it, but one person. The item number 1 was actually the most challenging.
Wow.
And merging with the way, everybody was like, well, yeah, of course we should. It was crazy. Like I didn't expect that kind of response, but
that's why it was number 3.
That's why we saved it for last. We thought it was going to be hard, but it actually turned out to be the icing on the cake. Yeah, people were so excited. And part of that was because we had always started with a vision to be a multi-ethnic, multi-economic, multi-generational community. Mm-hmm. And we weren't able to fulfill it on our own. We weren't able to fulfill that mission on our own. But we had that vision, and we had been talking about it. We had been preaching about it. We had been singing about it for, almost 2 years at that point. Mm-hmm. And then they had been getting to know Bernard.
Right.
Because he come into all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And they knew his heart, and they knew who he was, and they're just like, well, yeah, this seems like who we are, and this is what we need to do. It was easy.
Okay.
Well, that part was easy. The convincing was easy.
Okay, Pastor Bernard.
So, like Kyle said, the church already knew Kyle. They already knew his congregation, and I sprung it on him on a Sunday morning. And I said, man, I'm following the Lord's. I believe I'm following the Lord's heart, and we're going to be merging with Oakland Communion. And the church went up in cheers.
Whoa!
Yeah.
You know what? I love it. I love it. I mean, because you guys were courting one another, so to speak.
Already.
It was just the next
That's
step.
how we like to look at it.
Yeah.
Long walks on the beach and everything. Yep.
Yeah.
So did you guys at that time have, because you could have gone to their church, they could have come to your church, but you guys both closed the doors to your own churches. So did you guys already have a property, a new church in mind? How did that work? How did you work that out?
So we didn't have a property, we didn't have a church in mind, but we knew we didn't want to meet at one another's building, because it would have gave the people the sense of they're coming to us. Yeah. So we picked a neutral place. We found out where we wanted to be, and it was neutral. And we found God blessed us with a loving school to be a part of, and that's an interesting story how all that came together.
Wow,
man. Yeah, it was really clear to us from the get-go that neither one of us could absorb the other. That would result in us completely losing the other, because what we wanted was for everybody to be able to come with exactly who they are and everything that they bring and feel completely at home, feel completely themselves. And that was not going to happen if one church sort of absorbed the other church.
Right.
And God blessed us to be like kind of a similar size at a similar stage in our journey, right. and all of that too. So that it just made so much more sense. So one of the things we did was we got in a room with everybody from both of our churches.
Nice.
In a community center in East Oakland, and we said, hey, we need to brainstorm a new name. Because if we're going to do this, we can't be The Way, we can't be Oakland Communion.
Yeah.
New thing God is doing.
And we couldn't combine the names because that was ugly.
What was it? Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. It's a really great point, because I remember getting married, and this is our second marriage, and we both had children, and we both had our own houses. And I just didn't want to move into my husband's house and bring my children, because it would have been his house and his children's rooms and vice versa.
Right.
So we ended up selling our place and finding a place for everybody to start a new beginning. So that's very huge. I completely understand that. Was there any fallout? Like, did any one of the members say, I can't do it, I can't participate in this? Did you guys get any of that?
We had one.
One.
We had one. a brother, he came to me and he was like, man, I'm not with it. And I blessed him and he went on his way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a couple that was worried about the changes and worried that they would be too uncomfortable. And they had a lot of life changes going on at the same time. And they felt, I mean, this is the way a lot of us feel sometimes, that during this time, during this season, we need people like us around us so that we can feel supported. And I said, well, that's okay. But then this isn't for you.
Exactly.
Because we believe that you need people who are not like you.
Right.
That's interesting. It said, you know, my husband would always say, and I would hear my dad say, who are both ministers, my dad and my husband, that Sundays are the most segregated day of the week. And I never really understood that. I thought, okay, because the blacks have their church, the white has their church, you know, just different churches all over the place. And I thought it's just our cultures, right? It's just, I like this music, I like this pastor, I like this style of preaching, so I'll go here. Or it's in my neighborhood and it's comfortable, it's convenient, so I'll just go here. But I didn't know that it was more to that, guys. I just was, you know, blown away in light of what's going on in our world, you know, the huge racial divide across the nation.
Right.
I'm just now learning why that is so, why it's said. You know, I did not know that. And
we're doing everything huge in our power to try to change that.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know, it's interesting, Rosalind, I mean, churches in our country are segregated because people like me segregated them. Because people like you were forced to sit in balconies and not allowed to serve in leadership. And
not being invited to church, and the word being kept away from us was also part of the reason, Kyle. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Well,
and that's a big part of the reason why we did it the way we did it. And because when you live in a society where churches are segregated, and predominantly historically because white churches have forcibly segregated churches, and black people in the United States and others have had to form their own churches in order to be able to worship and in order to be able to celebrate in their own culture and worship in their own culture and not be looked down upon for it. Then what you have now in the last 20 years is a big push towards multi-ethnic churches, which is great.
Yeah.
One of the things there was this great podcast. Oh man, what's it called? This podcast. I'm blanking right now.
That's okay. But if you think of it, send it to me, and we'll put it in the link when we share this story out. So,
okay. Yeah, I will. And I remember basically what the title was though, and the title was Multi-Ethnic Churches. It was something like the hope for reconciliation, or a bulwark of segregation, or a bulwark of white supremacy. That's what it was. Question mark, right? Hope for reconciliation, or a bulwark of white supremacy. And their question was, are multi-ethnic churches in the United States today actually colonizing forces that are asking people of color to leave places that have been safe and empowering for them,
right,
onto a place that's dominated by white culture and white people in power. And so when we came together, we realized if we're gonna do this, it's got to look differently than that.
Yeah.
And I think I ought to say this. And when we were talking about the leadership of the church,
that's what I wanted to ask you.
I was thinking about a shared leadership model, and I expressed that to Kyle, and he said, "Nah, that's not going to work." And I preached to him my best sermon on shared leadership, and then he said, "No, it just doesn't work for me." So I preached to him my second best sermon on shared leadership, and then he said, "No, bro, it's not going to work." And then I'm like, man, what's the deal? And he said, look, this is, if it's not this way, I'm not going to do it. And he said, this doesn't work for me if you're not the lead pastor. Because what people need to see is a white man submitting to the authority of somebody black.
Oh my God. That is absolutely powerful and amazing. And Kyle, just God giving you that vision, you know, and you standing on it in obedience is huge. It's unheard of, you know.
Right.
And that was
I mean, I never heard a white man talk like that.
He's been telling you what to do ever since. I mean, what was it, 2016?
Yeah.
And you're listening. So that's a beautiful friendship. That's a beautiful ministry, you know. And the fact that you guys are doing it well before the racial divide exploded, right? That's what I wanted to really bring you guys on, because it wasn't just, okay, at the start of this racial divide, the big uproar, it didn't happen then. I wanted to know why back then. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I hope many more churches follow the lead, because God says that they will know us by our love, right? They will know us by our love, you know. So how do you guys do the cultural differences, the music, all of that stuff? I mean, right now, my husband and I, we go to a multiracial church. We are the minority there. The music is way different from what I'm used to, but I led a praise dance ministry for years, and I would intentionally pick out music that wasn't necessarily a Black artist, because I wanted the words to be heard and for the words to minister to whoever we're ministering to. So I intentionally picked out, you know, not always, but a lot of times there weren't Black artists that we would minister to through dance. So now I'm kind of used to the music where we go now. Sometimes I miss it, but not for the most part, right? Because I'm at a different level. I want to worship. I want to hear what's being said in my ears. How did you guys deal with that aspect of it? Because music is huge, especially in the Black community. I mean, in all different churches, but in ours, we get down. It's different.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously when we were coming into it, we realized, okay, if we don't do something right with this aspect, this is all just going to blow up, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say this for the first part, what we did, especially for white folks, because white folks are not used to being uncomfortable
and loud.
And loud. No, well, yeah, they're not used to being loud. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But they're used to having their environment cater to them. I should say we are used to having the environment cater to us at a certain, especially at church. You don't go to church to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
For like a couple of years, we had to like teach people, hey, we're like, this is actually good. Like when you feel uncomfortable, it's good. Lean into that. You need that. Like that's how we grow, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was a lot of the discipleship leading up. And then we took our worship teams and we brought them together a few months before. Well, we had been worshiping together back and forth for 2 years, first of all.
Okay.
At each other's congregations, just participating in each other's congregations every couple months, the first year, and then every month for the second year. So we were getting used to each other a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then we brought our two worship teams together and had some really deep conversations about, hey, what worship background do you actually come from? Like what style of music do you know and love, and what styles of music do you not know? And, and it's interesting because, people who are into music, like just because they're white doesn't mean they all grew up on CCM, right? Just because they're Black doesn't mean they grew up on gospel. So we had these really great interactions, and we led our team through like 6 months of monthly meetings where we went through a book called The Next Worship. We talked about our values as a worship team and how we're going to support each other on that team. And then basically we just try to make everybody uncomfortable like 60% of the time.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, very strategic. Yeah, because like you said, you have to be uncomfortable and sit in it
Right.
in order to grow.
Exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
That's huge. I love it, guys. I really, really love it. So Pastor Bernard is the lead pastor, and Pastor Kyle, what's your role then?
I'm the executive pastor. For a while, I was just pastor, but we've sort of identified that I needed to shift into more of an executive pastor role. So basically, what that means is, while I also preach about half the time, a little less than half the time, I also do a lot of like the sort of organizational health and strategy sort of stuff at the church, and some administrative stuff at the church.
And I'm free to dream.
Thank God for Pastor Kyle. I'm just saying. So then I'm just asking because I want to ask your wives to come on too eventually, because I'm sure that is a different story. Like, everybody has a story. This is your guys' story. I know you have individual stories, but they have a story as well. When my first husband first told me that he was called to pastor, I'm like, wait a minute, you mean I have to straighten my hair? Wait, you mean I have to wear a hat? All those things. And I'm just so plain, and I just want to worship. I don't want people looking at me and expecting me to do these things. I just want to worship. I don't want, so yeah. I'm sure for your wives, it's like, okay, wait a minute, where's my role? And we're combining, and how does that look for them? So eventually I would love to have them in. I was leading
Steph had never been a first lady before.
Say that again?
Said Steph had never been a first lady before.
So you guys, you are so funny. Wait, I thought about having them on with you guys because I wanted to just hear what they would say in front of you and what you guys would say in front of them. But this is recorded, and she will hear this, right? So really, really, you guys have two first ladies. Kinda.
I think we basically look at it this way. You tell me if you think I'm wrong, but we basically look at it this way. If people need to look at us a certain way, they're allowed to. So if people need to call me Pastor Kyle, they can call me Pastor Kyle. They can also call me Kyle. And most of our church, like we don't hold our spouses up as the first lady, like she has other, like a bigger role and responsibility than just a very committed member of the church.
Yes.
Basically, like at least for me and Steph, when we got into ministry, her parents are also pastors. Her dad is a pastor, and her mom served alongside him for 40 some years. And we got into this and we said, hey, we're very conscientiously understanding you as the pastor's wife are really just a very committed member of the church.
I love it.
I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't ask somebody else.
And same here. I've always been kind of different.
I need you to be careful, Pastor Bernard, because that's my friend. No.
But I mean, I used to. Kim would do something and they would say first lady. I was like, well, who's the second lady?
Yeah.
And who would be the third? and who would be the third? So
yes.
She's not First Lady Kim. She's Kim.
Yeah.
Don't put that pressure on her.
But she's fabulous.
Oh yeah, she's fabulous. She's extremely fabulous, but she don't need that pressure.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, because a lot of us as just congregation members feel like, because the pastors, are pastors, then we look at their wives differently. Like we have to bring them like they're preachers, like they have to sit on this pulpit. It's just, that was my reservations. Like, wait a minute, you were what? You were called to do what? And I wasn't the first person he told. And I understand why, because I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then you have to worry about the people, and I'm like, I'm always worried about people and what they think and how they feel. And I'm like, this is the last thing I want to have to worry about is what people think I should be doing, because my husband is called to preach or to pastor a church. So that's it. So what about the attire? Is it different? Is it casual? What do you guys do?
This is what I wore to church today.
Okay, good, because I love it.
The moment I planted my church, I got rid of all of my suits.
Isn't it freeing though? I mean, isn't it freeing? Oh my God, you're talking about the dresses and the pumps and the shoes, and even my husband, where we go now, you're right, Pastor Kyle, we dress like this and it's comfortable. And I think that I feel more free to worship, even though I'm probably loud in the church anyways, but it's just, it just comes out. It's like Jeremiah. It's like fire. It just comes out. Yeah. But I think
one day I preached in shorts and my father like to have a heart attack.
I bet. Where's your clothes? You're not getting in the pulpit like that. And we've had this debate, I've had this debate in book clubs, how, you bring your best to God, you dress up for him. And I'm like, God is not worried about the outside. He's worried about our heart. What about your hearts, even though you're all dressed up, and then you can't worship and praise him because you're too cute, too dressed up, to all of that,
Yeah, it's so funny. I'll tell you this really brief story. I was in seminary, so like grad school for pastors, right? And I was preaching at a church like an hour and a half away that was without a pastor at the time. I was kind of filling their pulpit, so to speak. And it was my first time there. I'd never been there before, but I was going to be going for 3 weeks in a row. And I was in Michigan, and in Michigan, in the denomination I'm in, I was like, I think it's like pretty, everybody's usually like pretty buttoned up, like suit and all that. But this church had a reputation for being a little bit more casual. So I didn't want to be a distraction to them. So I dressed up. I wore a nice collared shirt and slacks and nice shoes and no tie, no suit. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was casual, right? So I went and I preached. And after the service, somebody comes up to me and says, Pastor, that was so great. That was so great. And I didn't have the heart to tell him I wasn't a pastor yet, but he was like, oh, that was so great. And just so you know, if you want, you don't have to wear all that next week. Like you could come in like a t-shirt and shorts if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, great. Thank you. Taken under advisement. And I came back the next week, and just to see what would happen, I wore the exact same thing. Mm. And that next week, somebody came up to me after, different person. Hey, that was great. Oh man, so glad to have you. Also, did you know you could be more casual here if you wanted to? And I was like, man, that's so fascinating. Twice in a row. Mm-hmm. Third week, I came back, same exact thing happened 3 weeks in a row. And the thing about this church is at the very beginning of every service, they tell you, you can come just as you are. Right? And I thought, unless you're dressed up, then you're constantly told you got to dress down. And I was, man, so at Tapestry, this is what we've chosen to wear from like a personal perspective and even maybe a little bit of a missional strategic perspective. Mm-hmm. But if somebody came in with a hat and heels and like dressed their best for God, mm-hmm. like praise God, like welcome with all of that. Because if we accept people just as they are, that's got to go both ways, right? Like,
yes. And unfortunately, we're looking at the outside. When God says, "Come as you are with your heart,"
that's right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know. I feel so comfortable and so free. Just being able to get up and go to church comfortable. I mean, I'm not going to dress in my worst because, that's not comfortable for me. But I wouldn't show up to my job like that either. I remember times going to church or feeling like I didn't have anything to wear to church, even though I have closets full of clothes, oh, I can't find anything. So then that was another distraction. It was an excuse. Then I just won't go because I can't find anything to wear, to please the people that are looking at me, I guess, So that's really huge. That's really huge, you guys. I love it. I love what you guys are doing. I don't want to take up all of your Sunday because I can continue to talk. I should have gone live because I'm sure that there's questions that people have. I actually asked a couple people, what did you want me to ask them? What would you want to know? I don't know. I guess this would be like any church, like how do you make your decisions just on anything? And I guess you guys are talking about them together. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like with anything, a marriage. But this is a church. It's huge.
Yeah. But decision making, like we are a multi-ethnic church, and we believe a true multi-ethnic church is a church if there's an Asian, if there's a Latino, if there's somebody black, if there's somebody white, whatever nationality or ethnic group is represented there, that ethnic group has a seat at the table helping making decisions for the church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, as long as you're preaching the word, right? As long as you're preaching the word, whatever decisions you're making should be based and founded on the word, So it shouldn't be that difficult, but it's still difficult. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. And
we learned so much. We learned so much about the word through seeing it through each other's eyes, right? So like there's stuff in the Bible that I'd never seen before I met Pastor Bernard.
Yeah.
Right? And like when we first started getting together, like I didn't realize I have to now I sort of do this naturally, but at the beginning I sort of had to intentionally retune my brain to think like, wow, the way he's seeing this passage is through a different set of eyes and experiences, and thinking about like people who don't have the life experience that I had in some significant ways. And so I was, wow, I'm seeing new things in the word.
Yes.
And that's why everybody's got to have a seat at the table, because even if we're making decisions on the word, we can still make decisions in our own context from our own cultural perspective,
right? Without
taking into account everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like yes and.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I get it when you said now I'm seeing it, a different way, because even when I believe God said, you need to point them to me, but point them to me through my word and your stories, right? And I'm just like, me, you know me. Yeah, I know you. And he reminded me of the story of Moses, like, who made your mouth? And I was like, okay, so now Moses' story is my story. Like, you just go do what I told you to do and let me do the rest. Are you going to trust me? Right? So that's huge. And then Esther, for such a time as this, you guys, for such a time as this, it's huge. It's huge. So how's your, I don't even know why I want to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How's your faith holding up? Is it stronger? Is it the same amidst the COVID-19, the shelter in place, the racial divide in the country? How is your faith as pastors holding up? Because the Bible says we go from faith to faith, right? How is it holding up for each of you individually?
Well, I believe times like this and times like we're in now, I believe our church was made for this.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
I believe our churches like ours were built for this time. And my faith has been strengthened through our community work, through our participation in community. It's just been strengthened, and I really believe our church was built for times like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pastor
yeah, for me, to be honest, COVID all the racial injustice and the uprisings that we've seen. It's been a roller coaster for me personally.
Yeah.
When it comes to not my trust in God, but my day-to-day experience of the benefits of that trust.
Yeah.
It's been ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I would say, to be honest, it's probably like there's a direct correlation between the strength of my faith on any given day and the amount of attention I pay to him in any given day.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's part of the thing that's made it hard with COVID is that like all the rhythms have been like we're thrown into chaos, right? And and then you know, when something like what happened to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all that, when that happens, our community, like it's not like we just keep doing business as usual.
Right.
Like that changed everything for us overnight too, in terms of what our day-to-day life was as pastors and as friends and brothers and sisters. So when my rhythms get off, sometimes my faith dips because I'm not connected. But also God has been opening up new vistas of hope. And one of the things that's been really gratifying has been watching people that I never would have thought would care about George Floyd. Care now. Churches that, you know, I preached a sermon at a church about white supremacy. It was an all-white church, like a year ago.
Hey, that's bold faith.
Man, that might throw me out.
It's the word. I mean,
it's in there.
Hey, don't take my word for it. Read it for yourself.
But you know what?
Pastor Kyle, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's bold faith.
Hey, you know,
yes,
it's just obedience.
Yes.
It's obedience. That's what I got out of the text that they gave me. So, you know. But
you invited me.
Hey, yeah, it's not my fault. But you know what's crazy? Some people from that church reached out to me at the beginning of June and said, "Help! Like we want to know, we care. We want to know how to care. Like we want to know." So I mean, God has been strengthening my faith through this time in that way as well. Just like this is different. It's a different moment.
Thank you for being so transparent, even as a pastor, because we're still human, and the ebbs and flow change, and being sheltered in place, and with the virus spreading around, going around, you just don't know. And then on top of the deaths and the murders and I call this time the great pause. I'm like, because it's bigger than us, and it's causing us to pause, to stop everything. Stop going to work, stop going to the gym, stop going to the church building. So now people that don't believe, or even people like us that believe we can worship as long as we're in the church building, what about outside of the church? Are you still worshiping him? Are you still seeking him? Are you still spending time with him? So that's huge. And you're right. I mean, being sheltered in place and being in the house, and it's one thing to be sheltered in place, okay? But to not be able to go anywhere and not be able to see your loved ones and your families, what we're used to, God says, no, it's greater than you and me. Sit there and figure out who I am if you don't know who I am. Or, feed your relationship, know me intimately outside of the church building, because we are called to be the church, right? I was teasing about the masks that we have to wear, right? It's like, okay, we've been wearing masks all along. They're just invisible. You can't see them. Because are we Christians outside of the church? What about in our homes? Are we still being who we said we are? Is God still God to us outside of the church building, outside of Sunday services? So that's, I appreciate that. I because my faith goes like this. It's just, okay, especially when Floyd, got murdered. And I'm just like, okay, but God, you're omnipresent. You're everywhere. You were there. You knew it was going to happen. You're omniscient. You knew it was going to happen. So I had to have my husband talk me down. I mean, I knew it and I know it. I just had to say it,
Yeah.
so and at that moment, my faith was just like, okay, wait a minute, so I appreciate the honesty there because it's true. I mean, you guys as pastors, I'm glad to hear that it's there, but sometimes it's low, yet and still it's still there. So thank you so much for that. I keep looking over here because I don't want to forget anything before I let you guys go, because you can't just hang up on me, can you? So you guys, I really, really want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys for saying yes to sharing your beautiful stories. I think that you guys have started something new that people need to hear, that it works. It's not perfect. Nothing is perfect, but it works. And you're working it out and you're working through these things. I think also that you guys should put together a kind of like the conference thing, if you will, that you guys went to. If you guys can put something socially together like that, I think it would be huge. And just invite people to do the social experiment to see how they feel and to sit in these places, uncomfortable or not, and to learn of one another, because there's one God, but I'm just putting that out there. I'm just saying. You guys experienced it. I think it would be a beautiful thing. Pay it forward.
Well, maybe when we can get back in the same room with people. Yeah.
So, were you guys online already, or did you have to pivot?
We had to pivot.
Okay.
We had to. In fact, Kyle and I were milling over, buying video equipment, and then one day we just pulled the trigger and bought the video equipment. And the next Sunday they said we couldn't meet.
Wow. If God's hand is not upon you guys, I don't know. I just don't know for such a time as this. I just don't know. I appreciate you both. I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I don't know if I let you guys even speak to how the name Tapestry came to be. So before I end that, can you guys share that with me?
Well, Kyle said we called everybody in a room from both congregations at a community center, and we had everybody that was there got to present a name for the new church. Mm-hmm. And we had 3 categories. It had to be memorable. It had to be what else?
It had to be missional, and
missional.
It had to have a multicultural impact.
Theme to it. Yeah. And so, man, we went through about 100 names.
Yeah.
And so we dwindled it down to 50, and then we dwindled it down again. And then when we got to about 15, we said, hey, as pastors, do you guys trust us to pray over these names, and dwindle it down to 10, and then dwindle it down to 5? And then they said, yeah. So we prayed over the 15 names, and then we dwindled it down to 10. And then we presented the 10, and then we went back and we prayed over it again, and then we dwindled it down to 5. And I'll let Kyle tell you how we got the number 1.
Well, Tapestry. Well, for one thing, there was an open URL at Tapestry. We weren't gonna. A couple of the names just got nixed because there's already another church like that. But to be honest, keep it real. But when it came to Tapestry, I mean, so our identity is people of many cultures woven together into the fabric of Oakland to display the beauty of God's story. And a tapestry is basically a rug with a picture. So it provides, and it's usually hung on a wall, right? And so in the olden times, they actually would use it to provide insulation for a house, right? So tapestry is something that gives warmth and security to people. It's something that that has an image or symbolism on it that tells a story. And it has to be combined of all these many different colors of threads in order to actually create the image and present the picture that's meant, right? So we felt like that was exactly the picture of the kind of church we wanted to be. We wanted to be people who are so interwoven in each other's lives that when you step back and you look at us, you can't tell us apart. Like it's just one image. Right. But when you get close, you can see that, oh, we're so different, and it's the difference woven together by Jesus that makes us a beautiful picture of who he is.
Beautiful.
So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, that's like the body of the church. You're the body of church, right? There's many members, but there's just one. So I love that. It's beautiful. So do you guys have a vision statement for Tapestry?
Well, that was just it. People of many cultures woven together into the fabric of Oakland to display the beauty of God's story.
I love it.
So that's, we call it our identity statement. That's both who we are and who we're becoming. So it holds a vision out for the future, but it's more a vision, not so much of what we will. Well, it is a vision of what we will do to display the beauty of God's story, but it's also a vision of who we will be, and that's every bit as important.
Beautiful. So I don't have any more questions for you guys, but if I haven't asked you something that you'd like people to know about you, about your church, about what you're doing, I want each of you at this time to just take a minute to just speak to the world, because I will be putting this message out for my community, and whoever comes across this message. I think it's beautiful. I think it's powerful. I think people need to hear it. So again, if I have not said anything or asked you something that you wanted to say, I want each of you at this time to take a couple minutes to just speak from your heart. And let's start with Pastor Kyle.
All right. That's good. You're saving the best for last. Well, one of the things that we said in an interview on the news, actually, right before we launched with Dave Clark was, and we still believe this very strongly, that we long to be a very unremarkable church. I think our story at the moment is remarkable. By God's grace, like He's put together some of the most different people that exist in Oakland into one family, and that's amazing. And that's really what He's in the business of doing, and has been doing for 2,000 years. And so we're really hopeful that at some point, hopefully through the mission of Tapestry and many other churches who are working towards this goal, that when churches like us get together in the future, it won't be a story. It'll just be an of course, because this is what Christians do, because this is who their God is. And this is the power that He brings into communities like ours. So that's something that we really long for. And so if there's anybody out there who is thinking about doing something like this, feels like God is calling them to be a part of something like this, and you're not sure quite how to go about it, or you have some concerns or questions, please reach out to us. There's a contact page on our website. So I can put a little plug. It's Tapestry.Online.Church. So if you just go to Tapestry.Online.Church and you go to the contact us page, you can send us a note, and we'd love to support you on your journey.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Pastor Bernard?
And I think this works so well. I don't know how much of an impact we're having, but I believe our relationship works so well because of Kyle and my relationship. And in the beginning, before we committed to any of this, we committed to each other to be better brothers than we would be pastors.
I love that.
And that means my brothership with Kyle trumps my blackness, and it trumps his whiteness. So I can never be more black than I am his brother. And he can never be more white than he is my brother. And we decided then that we would be better brothers than we were pastors. And regardless to whatever happened in our churches, we said if we can't even agree on something, we still will get up from the table as brothers. And that has worked out for us.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. I love it, guys. I mean, like I said, I heard about you guys through Kim, maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, I don't know. But I think the time is so important right now, and your story is so timely. And it's just beautiful. I just can't even say how much I just love the idea. I love that you guys are obedient to what God put on both of your hearts. And then Pastor Kyle did give the website. How about if people are looking for a church home and want to come and visit your church, can you please give us, we'll put it in the link also when we share the story out. But for people that are listening, as soon as I do it or listening right now, can you just verbally give us your physical location?
Yeah, well, our physical location, which we're not meeting at presently, is a school called Learning Without Limits. It's the old Jefferson campus in Oakland, 2035 40th Avenue. That's 2035 40th Avenue. We're in the Fruitvale. And online, we have all our services live right now on YouTube and on our church our online campus. So if you just Google Tapestry Church Oakland in YouTube, you'll find it. Or if you go to Tapestry.Online.Church, that's our campus. That's sort of our online campus where we have, public chat and live prayer and all that kind of stuff happening.
Okay. Do you guys have any reopening dates in mind? I think our church is opening next weekend. We started to open, I think, Father's Day weekend, and decided to prolong it a little while longer, so we're opening next weekend. Do you guys have any dates as far as reopening? We're not sure.
No, we don't. We're committed to opening when it's safe to do so. And as of now, the county hasn't given any guidelines for us to open.
Okay.
But as soon as it's safe to do so, and soon as the county outline guidelines, we'll set a date then.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, pastors, I appreciate you once again. I thank you so very much for sharing your story and for being the heart of God. I mean, the hands and the feet of God, literally. I think it's a beautiful thing what you guys are doing, and I think that there are many more churches to follow your lead. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and it's been an honor to know both of you guys, to be introduced to both of you guys, and hopefully when this is all said and done, I'll have an opportunity, my husband and I will have an opportunity to come and visit you guys as well. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for having us.
Oh,
yeah,
thank
thanks
you.
for having us on your show. It was great to meet you.
Nice meeting you guys both. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
All right.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.